To order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for January 18th, 2023, 8:45. If the clerk will please call the roll.
Councilor Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Harden.
Present.
Councilor Boone.
Present. Is anyone recording the meeting this morning?
Yes.
All right. Any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium subject to reasonable requirements of the chair as to the number, placement, and operation of equipment used so as to not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. Any person intending to make such recording shall notify the chair forthwith. All documents referenced or used during the meeting must be submitted in duplicate to the chair of the committee pursuant to the open meeting and public records law. All documents shall become part of the official record of the meeting.
Are you recording it too? Okay.
Yes, sir. Our first item on the agenda is our public hearing on item 10861, an ordinance to amend the code of the City of Gardner, Chapter 600, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Section 42, titled One-Way Street. The ordinance being adding the following. The name of the street would be Reagan Street, the direction of travel would be northerly, and the location would be from Baker Street to Parker Street. That would take effect on passage. This public hearing is open. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this ordinance? Podium, please state your name and your address.
Ronald Cormier, 55 Whitman Drive. I'm the member of the council who presented this at the behest of several residents on Reagan Street, following the last bazaar that was held at Holy Family, or Annunciation Parish Church, I should say that. I'm confusing with the changes of names. The reason is particularly at the northerly end of Reagan Street, nearing Parker Street, there are many multi-family homes in that area, and it was noted at that time that two-way vehicular traffic is really very, very difficult because all of these homes, all of our homes today, virtually have at least two vehicles, sometimes more. Since these are multi-family homes in that area particularly, it tends to exacerbate the situation. The other solution would have been to propose one-side parking only, which would create a terrific hardship on any individuals that live there. It was suggested to me that it was a safety issue. It's particularly notable when you have an event such as that. Reason recommended northerly was because Nichols Street is a southerly direction. Fortunately, there is Moran Street, so that the people that live on that street who would want to acquire that street would be able to go up Greenwood Street, for example, turn east onto Moran Street, and they wouldn't even have to go all the way down to Baker Street. It's going to inconvenience some people at some point, but overall I felt, it was recommended to me, and it was felt that it was a safety issue, particularly in the wintertime when the street is narrowed by snow and so on. So I'm definitely in favor of it, and why I recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cormier. Is there anyone else looking to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? No, looking to speak in favor. I do have one comment from a resident that could not attend the meeting that said he's been this is Dennis Cormier. He says he's been a resident living on Reagan Street for 37 years. He cannot attend the meeting today, so he wanted to express that he is in favor of making Reagan Street one way. Oftentimes, especially lower Reagan, two cars cannot pass by each other, especially where there are cars parked on both sides of this narrow road. It's even worse in the winter with snowmounds. It oftentimes poses a safety hazard. Please vote to make Reagan Street one way.
Speaking of weight, would you like me to speak or wait on this council? I apologize. In favor.
In favor? Yeah, if you're looking to speak in favor, yes.
Morning, Chief McAfee. I'm in favor of either one of the proposals that Councilor Cormier just brought up. Something needs to be done on that end. Either it's going to have to turn one way, or we're going to have to limit parking on one side. Because I have on patrol witnessed cars having to stop to allow vehicles to go either way. Something needs to be done about the safety there. This was a reasonable proposal that I feel the support of if this doesn't pass, then we need to consider other options as well down there, so. That's all.
Chief? Is there anyone else looking to speak in favor? All right, is there anyone looking to speak in opposition of the proposed ordinance? Sir? State your name and your address.
My name is Jeffrey Palmieri, 69 Greenwood Street, former councilor at large for the city of Gardner. I'm in opposition to this, this one-way, this came about a few years ago, and I had a petition that I had quite a few people from Reagan Street that didn't like it. But that was then, and now this is now. My first thing was what Councilor Cormier said was they brought up. But one of my things is it's a safety issue that you guys are talking about, the safety. But I have a question for the chief. Chief, can you tell us if there was any accidents, injuries? Is there data history, or are we just trying to prevent the future? That's my question. Do we have backup on this to say that?
Well, that's my comment. I could certainly pull those numbers. We're going off of personal, witness, what I've personally witnessed on patrol down there, complaints I've received, complaints the department's received. This is not the first time we've received complaints about parking issues.
But nothing as far as accidents or injuries.
I don't have any of that.
That's one of my questions.
I apologize if you don't have that data.
And my other thing is, the people, this letter was sent out by the city of Gardner, and only the people on Reagan Street got it. And yet it says, abutters notice and other people's interested parties. Well, I'm not a butter, I'm on Greenwood Street, and I'm at the corner of Greenwood and Moran, and increasing traffic coming down Moran Street in the wintertime is not a really good idea because people can't climb that hill and they can barely get down it. That's a safety issue on the Greenwood Street side when people want to make a loop. If they're gonna have to leave their place and have to come down Moran Street to make a loop, they're gonna have to do that. It's gonna increase the traffic. So my other question is I had a petition, and I went around and I spoke to 25 residents on Reagan Street in the last 3 days. And I was against it, but after listening to it, I noticed that there was concerns. And the concerns from these people were as the following. And my little poll was 13 were against it and 2 were for it. And I didn't continue, but I talked to people because they didn't want to sign the petition. They just wanted to tell me the concerns. But some of the concerns were driving fast, have to pull over, like the chief said, to let a car pass. Were suggested, speed bumps, leave it alone. Property taxes go down on a one-way. People drive faster on a one-way. Property taxes also is, and no information was really given on this sheet to any of the residents. They don't even know which way it was going when I asked them. I had to come to City Hall and get this. So there's people that really didn't even know, unless you really dug deep, this letter didn't provide any information to help people along. One of the things that is important is the origin. It seems like we're trying to prevent things. People have been traveling on the street for 100 years. However, there's one interesting thing that I found when I was surveying all this, is that I went to Dane Arnold, and I wish he was here today, but I went down to Dane Arnold and I asked him a question. I says, Dane, what constitutes parking on both sides or one side? And he said to me, he drew me a diagram. Parking on 2 sides and parking and 2 travel lanes is 2 8-foots and 2 10-foots, which is equivalent to 36 feet. I've measured Reagan Street 5 times at all different intervals. It's under 32 feet. So the first issue is we should be looking at is there should be no parking on one side. And people will argue, well, we have the tenement houses down there. And I say, okay, we phased out on Greenwood Street. Greenwood Street is the same exact size as that, and yet they're parking on both sides. So I say to myself, I go, wow. So to do a test, we had code red the other night, we go, no parking. So I went down Reagan Street, everybody's off the road. Okay, everybody's off the road. We didn't have it last night. And when we didn't have it last night, I went down there and I videotaped it. There's 13 cars parked on the Holy Rosary side, on the right side. And there was 10 cars on the other side. So then I came back and I looked and I counted the parking spots that are available on the other side. There's 39 spots, and that's comfortable on going from Parker to Baker. 39. 16 before you get to Morris Street, 13 afterwards. So to tell me that there is no space for these duplexes, that they can't find space, it comes down to a convenience for the people when they have space to park their car on code red. But yeah, we want to put it. And what else is happening is that not only is the street shorter by 6 feet, which is almost a parking spot, is that the snowbanks, which is my other argument, push the cars even closer in the middle. By proposing, my solution is don't penalize everybody for doing it. If we made no parking, which is no parking on Holy Rosary along that wall, if no parking, which is in violation of the city code right now, I don't know how nobody figured that out, that there's only 30 feet between sides. Why is there no park? There should be no parking on that one side, period. Which would allow 32 feet, 30 feet for one car park and 2 travel lanes, which would be 11 feet apart, which is actually an extra foot per travel lane. Take into account the snowbanks, which push the car in, and you have nobody. You have 2 lanes, nobody can get out of their car. If you're on one end of Reagan Street, you can just go back, turn around and go down. There is ample amount of parking on Reagan Street for everybody. And one of the other things about making it a one-way too, it's just a little side note, but we should be starting with no parking first, is people, when there's a one-way, when kids get into the cars, if you make it a one-way also, you put children at risk by putting them in the travel lane when they get into their cars on the left side. Because most people, when you park up to the curb, the passenger gets out on the right. But on that case, if you switch it and you have parking on the left side, that means the kids are going to get in on the travel lane side. Safety, are we about safety? So I asked the council to check with Dane Arnold, which is I know is a fact, and why is there still parking on that side when the city says they're not supposed to have any? That's my question. Has anybody even looked into that? They keep saying, I gotta stop to pull over. We're in violation on Reagan Street. That needs to be addressed first before we even make it a one-way. It should be no parking there. And there is plenty of room for other people to park on that side. I'm going to yield right now. I'm going to look over some notes. I'm going to let somebody else speak. Thank you.
Is anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Bob Pelletier. I'm a Reagan Street resident. Pretty much have been there pretty much all my life, with the exception of a couple of years. I think the idea of this proposal, I think, is going to be counterproductive. Anybody's familiar with, as he says about the, as Mr. Cormier said about the bazaar. I've been there for many, many years at the bazaar. I know. You guarantee you park in your driveway, don't even think about parking in the road. If you move, you will not be back. It happens. It's the way it is. It's a big, big benefit. Let the church have it. It helps them out a lot. As far as my thing is more, majority of the year when school's in. I think the biggest effect it's gonna have on this is gonna be Nickel Street as opposed to Reagan Street. Because you're gonna increase, which Nickel Street I think is even a tighter street than Reagan. And if anybody's been around during school time, go in the afternoon at maybe 2 o'clock, sit there from 2 to 3. The morning they're more dropping them off, get out and go, jump and go, they take off. The afternoon they have to wait. If you wanna have traffic backed up to Parker Street when they can't get through to get to City Hall because there's so many people trying to go in the afternoon, because what they're gonna do is if they have to go on Reagan Street, they're gonna be going up Nickel Street, I think first, because anybody coming down the center is gonna be affecting that street more so. That I think is more of a safety issue than a lot of it. That's pretty much my biggest thing with that. I mean, it's gotta be, like I say, there's some reasoning, but I've been there all along. I think the only thing that I think was a problem, I think, as far as general winter, is when we put that parking ban in effect many years ago, has nothing to do with this, of what's being proposed, but I think Gardner's always done an outstanding job on cleaning the streets. But I think you tied their hands a lot, the city, because when the cars started staying in the roads overnight, because some decide to park, they don't. If they pulled every car from the first time they're supposed to at 11 o'clock, tell you right now, people would stop after 2 or 3 bills are getting towed. But some abuse the system, let it ride, they park out. Now you get, what happens is you get the effect of bumps all over the road because they decide leaving 2 cars here, 2 cars there, and it's not a good clean street like it always was. But that's just a whole different effect, and that comes into tightening up the road too. But that's pretty much it. I just think you're going to be counterproductive with Nickel Street, and that's not going to benefit this at all. And I think that's going to be more of an effect than what it's going to do to Reagan Street by doing this proposal.
Thank you. Anyone else looking to speak in opposition of the ordinance?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing, if I could, please.
Yeah.
I just want to go with Bobby Pelletier, what he said is really important. He's lived there many years. I've lived on there. And I ask everybody in this room, if you haven't lived in that neighborhood, you have to live in the neighborhood to understand. The people that go to church, that's okay. Talk about bingo. When those people come out of bingo, they're going the way they've always gone for 100 years. Trust me. It's important to know that when you're in your own neighborhood, you understand the philosophy, as Bobby would say. The bigger problem is what the chief said. You can't get by. You can't get by. 2 people, that's the biggest complaint. They can't get by. They have to pull over. We just went there on the way here. You can't get by. The biggest address that must be made, more than anything, has to be the width of the street. And why? Ask yourself why. Is there parking on a street that is 20% less space for cars to be there? They're not supposed to be. And the argument was always about that snow removal at nighttime, and they had the ban on that, and I agree with Rob. But he said the streets used to be a lot cleaner, 11 to 7, when they had the parking ban all the time. People found it. But I agree, Council Butcher always made that. When they made the vote, I disagree with it. And the cars were left there, and it made it harder. But now, you're running into problems with the snowbanks. And in the wintertime, which becomes more hazardous on both sides, it's more of an issue. But I stress to the safety, check on with Dane. I'm 100% accurate because I have his diagram right here. It's important to know that we can solve this problem and not make the only change is going to put up 6 more no parking signs along that way. And when people pick up at the end of the Holy Rosary, the pickups are at the back. And at night and during the day, there's actually not many cars on Reagan Street. It's more or less at the nighttime. So it doesn't affect the school as much as we think it does because the buses are out front. So I really believe that we could address this problem and find a solution that's amicable for everybody, and putting cars on one way is not the way for that area for this time. So again, I repeat one more time, is that it's a 6 feet violation of the city code. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else looking to speak in opposition? Anyone else looking to speak in opposition? Then the public hearing is closed. Next item on our agenda is item 10861, ordinance to amend the city code of the city of Gardner, chapter 600, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, section 42, entitled One-Way Street. I will accept any debate or any motion on the ordinance.
I have something to say about it. I live down that end on Greenwood Street. I've been there for 7 years, not quite as long as others at that end. I've had some issues down on Baker. I come out of Greenwood, there's the blinking yellow. I take a right, I go down Baker, and out of those streets, not one, but a few of them, people they don't even pay attention to the stop sign, they just slide on through. And I've almost gotten wiped out a few times. I think I don't think we're trying to penalize anybody. I think we're trying to make it safe for everybody. And I think that Mr. Palmieri has a point on parking on one side, where I am on the Greenwood end side where the bridge is. There's parking on one side, and it works wonderful. You get used to it. But that's a rough stretch too, because they fly with the bridge open, but that's another issue. As well as I think I've spoken to the police chief about Pleasant Street. Pleasant Street's a rough road there, where to me it should be a one-way, but that's another argument. But with this, I think we have to start somewhere. And I think maybe this is where we should start, as to making it one way. And then with that, maybe even come back and let them park just on one side. A lot of the roads in Gardner are very narrow. A lot of them were horse roads, and now they're very narrow. So I'm going to support this to start to make it safe there, and then maybe even go back and eliminate the parking just to one side.
Any other debate? Keep in mind that our movement here is to report and recommend to the council. This does not, we are not approving or rejecting this ordinance. Yes, sir. Councilor Blue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Palmieri and Mr. Pelletier bring up some other interesting alternatives, and even the chief suggested a possible alternative of eliminating parking on one side to improve it. It has given me more thought on this, because I'm like Councilor Harder. I think that it's, and before, I thought it was a good idea, because Nickel Street has been that way and things have worked well, and I did want to make sure that we heard from the residents, and I appreciate that the public hearing was brought forward. With that said, Councilor Harder brought up the point that let's try it, and if it doesn't work or it's too much of a problem, we can change it back. And as you said, Councilor Cormier, it's not our decision, it's the whole council's decision. So that could change when the final vote is. But I think right now I'd like to try it and see how it works out per the recommendation of the chief and others. And I'm going to support the motion.
Okay. I will entertain a motion on this recommendation to the council on this ordinance. Motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend to the full council.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Boone, seconded by Councilor Harder, to recommend approval to the full council. Is there any further debate? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will recommend this to the council at the next council meeting. Item 10882, an application for motor vehicle dealer license class 2 Gardner 5-star auto sales 407 Chestnut Street. Chief?
Police department has no issues with the issuances.
Mr. O'Leary, do you have anything from the clerk's department as far as where they are, as far as taxes?
Good.
Everything is good? All right, I will take a recommendation on the application.
Motion to approve the application and send to the full council.
Second.
A motion by Councilor Boone, second by Councilor Harder to approve the application for motor vehicle dealer's license class 2 Gardner 5-star auto sales. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Item 10883, an application for motor vehicle dealer's license class 2 Riverside Auto 65 Riverside Road. Chief?
Police department has no issue with the issuances as well.
Thank you, Chief.
No issues.
All right, they're in good standing. I will entertain a motion on this application.
I make a motion to send to full council for approval. Number 1.
Second. Sorry.
Motion by Councilor Harder and second by Councilor Boone to approve the application for motor vehicle dealer's license class 2 Riverside Auto 65 Riverside Road. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Item 10884, an application for motor vehicles dealer's license class 3 Riverside Auto 65 Riverside Road. Chief?
Again, no issue with the issuances.
You, Chief? All right, they are in good standing for this renewal. I will entertain a motion on this application.
Motion to approve and send to the full council.
Second.
A motion by Councilor Boone, second by Councilor Harder to approve the application of motor vehicle dealer's license class 3 Riverside Auto 65 Riverside Road. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. I will open up for new business. Councilor Harder, do you have any new business?
No, not this. No.
Councilor Boone?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Cormier. One of the things that I've would like to see happen here at City Hall is to place a security camera on our city drop box for several reasons. One is certainly security, and the other has to do with safety. We don't, if somebody puts something illicit in that box, and you know, way back when they were putting anthrax and all these other things, pipe bombs, who knows what. So personally, I think it's appropriate for us to have a camera on there in case something such that would affect the safety of the city employees, to be able to go back and look and monitor that. I think it'll be a big advantage for the city employees, the city itself, and of course law enforcement. So I'd like to propose that we make a recommendation to the mayor to investigate and get back to the safety committee as to whether or not that's possible and approved. So I'd make that in the form of a motion.
We have a motion to request for the mayor to investigate placing a camera on the drop box in front of City Hall.
Yes.
Motion by Councilor Boone, seconded by Councilor Harden to recommend to the mayor to investigate placing a camera on the drop box in front of City Hall. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any further new business?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right. The only thing I will say is I thank you to anyone in the public who attended this meeting. Again, this was just a recommendation to the council. The council will have a chance to further debate this when it comes before the council. We are without a councillor in Ward 3, and Reagan Street is in Ward 3. So my intention is to ask for more time until that seat is filled on this item. So once that is filled, I would recommend if you have any further input, you can reach out to me or your ward councilors. or councilors at large, or the Ward 3 councilor once that seat is filled. And then we will finally move on this motion once all that is in place. So I thank you for your time. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Clerk. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Boone, seconded by Councilor Hardern. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
It was a really good idea.
Wait.